So what are teachers looking for in writing about students? So these are some qualities I was writing about. Like when I write about students for recommendation letters, these are qualities that I look for. So I'm going to talk about the basic level. Maybe I should have sorted this, but I want to talk about like basically this is like at the foundational level. I will not write a recommendation for a student if they do not meet these qualities. And I have said like I can't write you a recommendation letter before, and here's why. And I'm sorry about that, but like this is this is the choices you've made. And so a willingness to try. So students who, they'll try a math problem, they like, oh, it's not right. They'll sit back and just, I give up. And I'm like, okay, well, try again, because this is how life works. It's hard, get off your butt and try again. And sometimes, a good whack with some papers will do that. Like a light whack with his papers will get the student, they'll get up and trying. And so that willingness to try is really important. When you see that you didn't get it right the first time, you try again. The students who are sitting there, they try one strategy, doesn't work, try another strategy, doesn't work, try a third strategy. That is what I can write about in a recommendation letter. This student is persistent. They don't give up. They're resilient. There's so many qualities I can get from just that. And let me tell you, like, it doesn't matter the experience level of the teacher. Everybody knows the kids that don't try. Everybody knows the kids that try. We'll talk about, okay, how can we get the student to try? And so if you're not trying in one class, you probably might not be trying in another class, which decreases your chances of getting a recommendation letter where teachers are saying this is a strong student. Asking questions. However, you have to use your resources. So if I'm, students who just ask questions all the time without using their resources, that doesn't get a strong recommendation letter, because I'm saying the student is lazy. As students, they don't understand something, they ask a question to the teacher, and every single time they're referring back to the teacher. Well, how will this look in college? The student isn't going to be self-reliant in college. The student isn't being self-reliant now. They're not using their resources. And in college, a lot of times you're almost like teaching yourself a class. Like, you need to be self-reliant. And so I can't write a strong recommendation letter for you if you're not using your resources and I'm not seeing that. And so what does that look like? That looks like, hey, Miss Alina, I checked my notes. This is what my notes said. I'm confused about what's in my notes because it doesn't match up with what's on the homework. Or can you explain this part again? Because I didn't quite understand it. So as holding up your notes saying, Miss Alina, I checked my notes. And so that means, oh, you've checked your resources and now you have a question. That's different than just saying, Miss Alina, I don't get it, what's the answer? Can you explain it to me again? No, I already explained it. Like, ask your classmate first and then I'll talk with you. And so also, I've been impressed by students who have said, they come away from class, they think they understand it, they're kind of halfway there, they go home, they're trying the homework, and then they Google a video and they follow the video, come into class. Miss Alina, I wasn't sure about it yesterday, but I Googled a video and I found out that this is the way that you did it, you do this problem. Or, hey, I checked the video and Miss Alina, they actually taught a different strategy. That's amazing. You found a different strategy? That's so cool. That shows me that you have initiative. That is something I can write about in a recommendation letter. So just if you're seeing, these actions demonstrate traits that I can then write about in a recommendation letter. Okay, a student who goes the extra mile. Now, this is one of the best types of student, and not that there's best, but this is like one of the strongest types of students that's saying, Miss Alina, you know what, we learned about the Pythagorean theorem yesterday, and I went back and I Googled who Pythagoras was, and I found out all these cool things about Pythagoras. And then I found out this about Pythagoras. Miss Alina, do you know about this other theorem that he might have discovered? I'm like, wow, this student's demonstrating an intellectual curiosity, which I think is one of the Stanford prompts or something. But like, yeah, and you want to demonstrate that intellectual curiosity. You want to say, and this can happen. And I have taught in schools where sometimes, and it's just just a fact, the teachers are very unskilled and they're presenting a material that they may not know about, and so it might come across in an uninteresting way. However, the material itself could be interesting if the student says, okay, you know what, Miss B or whatever, I don't understand what she's saying about Oliver Twist. That's not very interesting. But they go back and they Google why Oliver Twist is important, and they start to find out, oh, Oliver Twist is important because the reaction to the story that Dickens wrote helped shut down those workhouses in England, and that was the beginning of a policy change. Or another cool example could be if they learned about an AP US history, how there were horrible practices with canning food. And then there's a book called The Jungle where this guy Upton Sinclair kind of exposed these like canning practices. And it's a really interesting book. And it's actually, I think, less about the canning practices and about the development like of socialism and why that's important in the United States. But the important thing is like if I had a student who looks at that in an AP US history book and they went, and you know what, why didn't I read that book? And then they went back and they read that book and then it came to me, hey, Miss Alina, I was really curious about this book that I read about in my textbook. And then I actually went and read the book. I'd be like, wow, that's also amazing. I mean, they read a book to learn more about a topic. That again is an intellectual curiosity. It's that curiosity, it's that initiative I can talk about. And initiative is such an important thing in college. And those are the people that really go far in college because they impress their professors with taking an extra mile. They get more research opportunities. They get more recommendation letters. They get awards. Those are the people who build those really strong resumes. And that it starts with the intellectual curiosity and that initiative. Okay, being organized. Now, there are some super chaotic students who have things all over the place, and somehow they manage to pull it together and they're acing every class and whatever. Good for them. Usually it's, not being organized, you're losing papers, you're losing grades, you have missings. This is not the start of a good recommendation letter. If your teacher is always having to chase you down and say, hey, you have a missing, like, where is this paper? And you open up your textbook and there are literally like 100 papers beginning in August and it's now May, and you're looking through all these papers, like not a good look for a recommendation letter. I can't talk about how that student is organized. I can't talk about how that student is a planner. I can't talk about how that student seems very like in charge of their life. Like, no, because your life's all over the place. And it's affecting your grades. And then that's also something I can't talk about. I can't say, oh, you're a super strong student because now your lack of organization is affecting your grades, which, doesn't make that recommendation letter as strong as it could be. Okay, quality work. Each time, every time. This is really important for students. If I see you putting in your full effort every single time, I'm saying the student is consistent. They work hard, not just one time, like for one project, but every single time. This student is always putting in their best effort, and that is something that's really important. Okay, this is an overall thing. Going to tutorials is really important, not just for your like fully understanding the material, although it does show a lot of initiative and it does show a lot of passion and care about your work. It's also important because it's a great opportunity to talk one-on-one with your teacher who might have upwards, like some teachers have like 200 students, like in that 1 year. And so for a teacher, for 2 years, I had 100 and something students. My students who came to tutorials, we were able to build those stronger relationships. I was able to write them those stronger recommendation letters because they had that more one-on-one time or in a small group time where we're just chatting about, our interest or the material. And we're building that relationship, we're sharing that information. This is just a personal rec as a teacher that how to be a high school superstar. I mentioned a lot of great traits that when executed well, could be great things that a teacher could talk about. Wow, I've been talking for like a long time. Yeah, so just something here too, and I do want to mention this. This can really affect and undermine you if you're not making good choices on how you talk and what you talk about. So if you're talking bad about other teachers and other students, this is not a great quality, that makes me like want to write a recommendation letter about you, because I'm like, this person isn't authentic. This person's, and if you talk, especially if you ask someone to write a recommendation letter for you and you are not saying good things about them behind their back, I promise you, like, teachers know, like, they might not express to you like, oh, I heard that thing that you said or whatever, but they know. And that's going to be like, I really don't want to write you a recommendation letter. This has never happened to me, but I've heard this happen to other teachers. Like, hey, I don't really want to write you a recommendation letter because I know that you don't like me. And I know that, you're just asking me because I'm a person who can write a recommendation letter for you. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't show that you have empathy. It doesn't show that you're authentic. You want to also make good choices in who you're choosing to be as a person. And when you're choosing to chase like your goals and your dreams and aspirations, rather than like high school drama, that shows me that like you're a passionate student who cares about important things. And that's something that I can, high school drama is fun, but like overall, like choosing to focus on like what you're interested in and how to pursue that is something that you can talk about in a recommendation letter. Whereas like so-and-so really keeps up with the dating gossip at high school is not something you can write about. But so-and-so is really passionate about physics, and they actually do physics on their own. They're learning like about new theorems and stuff on their own. Or so-and-so is a really passionate coder and they love coding on their own. They've actually built their own computer. Like, these are things that we can talk about. And so choosing to talk about your goals and dreams and aspirations with a teacher, then Miss Alina, oh my gosh, you have to hear this about so-and-so, or like you need to change the seating chart because of such reason. Like that just takes away from information that I could learn about you and how you're amazing and how I could write you a good recommendation letter. Also, just one thing here, I did in one of my recommendations letters, I was really impressed by a student. And, you know, I work in Title I schools. And so like now this currently one, I work at 2 different schools right now. One's a Title I school and the one I taught before was a Title I school. And so a lot of students who go to Title I schools and just students in general, you have really difficult things going on in your lives. And so the students who either look for the good at that situation or they try to look for the good in other things in their lives, like that is something I can talk about. Like, wow, a student is going through a really hard situation and this is how they're managing that. And this is how like their outlook on it or their outlook on life has changed. Like these are things I can write about in a recommendation letter to show like how authentic, like just how do I say this? Like these are things I can write about a recommendation letter to show like how mature your outlook is and how like even though your life's been really difficult, like you still looked for the good in your life and how you can make that next step. I don't know how I said that. I don't know how if I need to add something to that.